Well, welcome back to another race breakdown. This is round 7 of the 2025 Super Series. We are out at Mypolonga, and after failing to finish the last 4 races in Cat 1, I dropped down to Cat 2. And I gotta say, this was something I thought about for a really long time. After having spent 25 kilometres by myself at the Loxton Road race a fortnight before this, not having a whole lot of fun solo in the wind, I kind of got my own head a bit, and I decided that I wanted to be finishing some races, and particularly on this course with the short but sharp climb that they've got on each of the laps. I didn't think I'd have any chance of sticking with the bunch more than a lap or 2 in Cat 1, so I dropped myself down. And right off the bat, the difference is chalk and cheese. Cat 2, the start was so much easier than in Cat 1. You know, we're half a K in and I'm doing 200 watts, 100 watts. And while every race is different, of course, I was having some hope at this point that maybe I'd be more likely to stick around till the end of the race. Now, we've raced this course a few times before in the Super Series in various iterations, and as you can see from the profile at the top, there's one short, sharp, steep climb. This one goes for about 400 metres. It averages only 6%, but other than the lead-in, it's probably closer to 10% for the last 300 metres. You know, in Cat 2 last year, I remember that the first and third laps just about killed me. But since I was out for sprint points last year, I sprinted up the second and fourth, gave it absolutely everything. And after the fourth lap, I actually blew myself up so hard getting the sprint points that I dropped off the back and ended up getting dropped and pulled early. But the other big difference with Cat 2 this year is that they were so much more tentative. You can see how spread out everyone is compared to Cat 1. And going around this left-hand corner, we were so hard on the brakes, we really just pootled around the corner, which was, to be fair, quite gravelly, so it was a bit of an uncomfortable corner, I guess. And then we go into this really nice descent. It says it's sort of 5%, I think, at the most, but it feels a lot steeper than that. And then in this first lap, we get to the left-hand turn at the bottom of the hill, and for some reason or other, everyone is so hard on the brakes, even though you can go through this at full speed, probably pedaling through the whole corner. It's not really worth taking care on. Now, I remember last year in Cat 2, coming out of that corner, for some reason or other, everyone just hit it along this bottom straight. And I remember struggling to stay on in the first couple of laps. The other thing is, last year there was a strong right to left cross headwind at this point, and so it was gutted last year. This year there was no wind at all. This was a race where you could really just sit in as much as you liked. We're in the gutter, but it kind of didn't matter. You could move up on the right without too much of an issue. And that brings us to the bottom of the hill for the first time. As you can see, I'm way too far back in the bunch. I kind of felt that the first lap was unlikely going to be where any significant moves went, but I hadn't meant to get so far back. I kind of got shuffled back and ended up having to hit this hill a little harder than I wanted on the first lap. I remember trying to sag climb it, but realising I'm too far back, and so I've got to hit the gas pretty early. I was sitting at 380 watts to start with, but then the front of the race seemed to slow down as we go into the hill. And so this is like a 50-second climb at worst. You can do it a bit quicker than that, and it really doesn't start to get steep until this point, where it kicks up past the start-finish line. A bit of a wobble up ahead of me. I was riding this seated. A lot of other people were getting out and stomping on the pedals. I just found this easier in the big ring, just to keep the power down in the saddle. And despite the fact that I was over 500 watts, I was quite surprised at how easy that was. Last year's race, I remember being 600 or 800 watts every lap getting up there. So armed with that information, it's now time to see how I can make this race shake out for myself. So we're 3/4 of a lap later, and I am right at the back of the bunch. And this really highlights the difference between Cat 1 and Cat 2. In Cat 1, there'd be a couple of teams driving it on the front. In Cat 2, even though it's single file up the front, only about 500 watts gets me from the back of the race to the front, which I can do in about 10 seconds, and then slot back in sort of 10th, 15th wheel, and now I'm in a much better position. Coming into the climb for the second time, I go wide on the corner to try to get a better line through the corner, but even so I lose a whole lot of speed. And this actually was one of the harder climbs during this race. In fact, looking back at my Strava, this was the fastest climb that we did all day. And so for this 50 seconds or 47 seconds, I averaged 450 watts, and I'm not in the wheels at the bottom of the steep bit of the climb. And I'm actually getting a little bit worried here because I can see that there are a few guys going up the road, and I'm not with them. I'm not in a position to respond. My heart rate's coming up, but fortunately I am in the main peloton still, and so I'm not too worried, because if a few guys go up the road with still 5.5 laps to go, unless every team is represented, it's unlikely I'm going to have to do any chasing. And as we come around the top and go around the top corner, I can see that there are some gaps starting to open up. Now in this case I'm a privateer. I do have other mood races in the pink kit, but because I've come down from the Cat 1 team, I'm racing in the alternate kit, and I'm definitely not going to race as a team with them. So as you can see, I'm not sticking my nose in the wind, and I'm just going to let this guest picks fella pull me all the way to the back of the break. Lap later brings us to the third time up the climb, and this time there is actually an attack off the front. We all rolled into it pretty well together, but there's a few guys lighting it up. Once again though, I'm in the middle of the bunch. I'm going up the outside because I want to set my own tempo. I'm not drifting back this time. And you know, 3 laps in, I've started to warm up enough, and after that climb I was feeling pretty good. That said, I wasn't interested in doing any chasing at this point, and as a solo rider in a team's race, I'm going to do as little as possible. But that said, I've moved myself a little bit closer to the front, not to do any work, just so that I can see what's going on. I see this guy in the black, I think that's Dash, going up, and I can see that there's 3, maybe 4 guys up the road, and I've got a bit of an idea of who's in terms of teams. Fortunately, I can see some other guys starting to chase it down, so I'm not going to try to bridge across, and I'm going to let them do a bit of the work. I'm pretty confident that if the gap's under 10 seconds, I could bridge across to it if it did look like it was going to stay away. But at this point, there were enough people chasing. And it's, you know, we're only halfway through the race. It's a bit too early for me, so I'm going to sit in, take a bit of a gamble. So I've taken a bit of a stock take of who's up the road, and it looks like there's only 2 teams not represented, Mood and Detour, so I'm yelling out to Nikita that, you know, he's going to have to chase it. Having a look up the road, I can see that Holdfast is represented, so this was a little bit weird. I said, I don't know what Holdfast is doing chasing that, I'll take it. Holdfast guy was chasing his 2 teammates up the road, so since the pace in the chase is still nice and high, I'm pretty happy. However, he must have heard me, because at that point the pace started to come out of the chase, and I decided that now was the time to bridge across. And I lit the afterburners. Fortunately, no one was in my wheel when I came across. I had moved into the wind. There was a little bit of a right to left crosswind at this point, but they were close enough that I was comfortable jumping across. And you can see I left a pretty big gap pretty quickly. Got to this halfway man and sat on him for a little bit. I was hoping he'd tow me the rest of the way across, but I think from memory he started to die at this point. But I'd had a few seconds to recover, so I'm just going to hop across the rest of the way. And I really like the size of this group. I know NorCal Cycling thinks that sort of 4 to 6 is good. I like a little bit bigger break, because then I can do a little bit less work. I can be that guy that hangs on. But yeah, I make it across. I think I yell at these guys, I won't take a turn just yet. And then we come into the descent with the left-hander. And again, I don't like this corner. I'm really hesitant on it because of the gravel. Could rail it a lot quicker, but... and because we've got a few guys drilling it at the front, we're once again putting in some distance to the chasing pack. So a kilometre later, taking a bit of stock, we've got a couple of guys from Norwood, someone from Guest Picks, someone from Dash Black, someone from 4-Axis, and in my rear view camera, Peter Burgess has teleported across, someone from Holdfast. And so we have all the major teams represented. The series leader at this point, he actually got a flat tyre on about lap 2, so there's no one chasing. And now we've got a pretty good break. We're close enough to the end. This race was shortened from 7 to 6 laps because of a crash in the Masters. I've been sitting in after my bridge, and now it's time to go. So I pull the turn, and at this point I'm feeling good, and I'm going to try to roll with this break for as much as I can. Pete Burgess in the Pink up ahead. He pulled such a strong turn along the bottom that no one else was willing to come through after his turn. But then we were about to go into this climb, so I don't think anyone was interested in burning a bicky just before the climb. But we actually took this climb really sensibly, rather than sprinting up it like we had in lap 2. You can see I'm only at 500 watts instead of the sort of 650 that I was before. So this break's looking like it's got a good opportunity. Everyone's pulling just about. But inevitably this was not working smoothly. Pete Burgess in the pink, who's been doing so much work on the front, he pulls off and now people are skipping turns. We haven't been rotating smoothly. You can see the guy behind me, instead of staying on my wheel, just jumps straight across to Pete's. And now there's 3 of us out the front with a lap and a half to go. And just suddenly the breakaway is falling apart. I think this guy ahead of us, he hasn't been up the road, he's being lapped. And I've had to do a bit of work to stay here, not a whole lot. It's been pretty surgy, but I'm not really interested in drilling this on with just 2 guys, because I didn't feel like we'd attacked off the front. We just kind of rolled off the front when someone refused to stay in my wheel and just dropped off. So we sit up a little bit, let the power drop out of it, and let the rest of the break come back to us, because as far as I'm concerned, this is too far from the finish to go even in a small group of 3. Once things do get back together, I want to keep the pace high, because I'd much rather sprint from a group of 10 than a group of 30, and on we go. Unfortunately, that little disintegration meant that a chasing group from behind managed to catch us back up, and now we're basically the full peloton. I think the group chasing us split a little bit, but we've now got about 20 or 30 riders again, so that break is done. So here we are, we've got about a lap and a half to go. It actually is 7 laps down from 8. The ticker says 6, but verbatim is hard to use. And I can see the 2 guys in pink talking, and all of a sudden Pete Burgess goes solo. So we've got a lap and a half to go. We did just get the 2 to go. And finally, the front group from Cat 1 catches up with us. So they were racing on the same course at the same time. They started about 5 minutes before us, and are doing a couple of extra laps to us. And normally we'd expect to be passed by them once, and then we'll do our finish, and then they'll come by. But interestingly, only the top 6 of Cat 1 passed us, and they were just drilling it. Meanwhile, Pete's up the road, gaining a pretty decent gap. He's probably one of the better sprinters in the field at the moment, but he's got so many watts under the hood that these long-range attacks, they can work. I'm pretty comfortable. I'm not going to chase it myself. There are 5 other teams in this that need to do the work. And if I'm honest, if Pete manages to get the win from a solo attack from this bunch, I'm not going to be too upset. So here we are on the flat. We're hooking along at 45k an hour, and the Cat 1 boys come past us, and as you can see, they're racing a different race. They're in a different league. So at this point, I'm not having any regrets about having dropped down. So here we are. We've got the bell. We're just coming off the climb for the second to last time. And now, with 1 lap to go, it's time for me to move up to the front of the race. I still don't want to do any work, but 6-7 kilometers left in this race. Now's the time that some of these cheeky little moves can get up the road, and I want to be in them, or I want to be right on there. And even if nothing does get up the road, I want to be at the front of the race now. I don't want to be trying to move up in the last stretch. And this is exactly the sort of move that can sneak off if you're not looking. Someone towed me up to it. Didn't have to do any work to get there, and the pace came out of it, but you can see we've got a 30-40 metre gap to the group behind, and that could turn into the race-winning move. I think Pete's still up the road at this point, but that works for me too, because I know that this group's going to be motivated to keep moving, keep motoring, trying to get onto his wheel. So hopefully I can sit in and not do any work. The bunch caught us pretty quickly, and unfortunately there is such thing as being too close to the front, and I kind of found myself on the front. But although I am pulling a turn in inverted commas, I'm only hitting 300 watts. This isn't a match. I'm really just tapping the legs to keep the pace up, and as soon as I've done my turn on the front, parachute's out, and now I'm waiting for the rest of the bunch. If we were still that group of 3 or 4 and there was a big gap, I might have done a decent turn. We're now absolutely close enough to the end that I'm going to be willing to invest in a likely move. This is well and truly close enough for me to have a shot at getting to the end. but it's got to be the right move, and that one wasn't it. A few more guys from Cat 1 have passed us. That's not our race, so even though it looks like there's a break up ahead, I'm still sitting fourth wheel. So we've got one corner to go. We're on the back straight for that last climb. I found myself shuffled a bit too far back in the group. You can see I'm probably 20 wheels back, and it is all of a sudden tight. It's no longer sort of one or two. There's a bunch of teams with a few riders at the front trying to keep their protected riders close. But my heart's down at 155 beats a minute. I'm doing 150 watts, and even though I'm not in a great position, I am ready for this finish. And partly because I was riding totally within myself, I was really feeling good in the bunch. I was feeling like I was able to move around where I wanted to. I was feeling comfortable being in close proximity to other riders. You can see I'm creating some gaps. I'm moving into some space that I maybe wouldn't have done earlier on in the race, or if I was on the river and not thinking as straight. And so in the space of a few, maybe 500 meters, I'm now maybe only 10 wheels back. I've got some strong sprinters right ahead of me. I'm sitting next to Peg. I know he's going to want to be pushing for this final, and all of a sudden I'm in the second row, and I'm pretty happy with this. I don't have the biggest sprint at the moment, but I've got a pretty long sprint, and I know I'm not going to be going all out up that hill to start with. I would really like to have one guy in front of me who I knew was going to give it some beans into that last corner, but I'm on the inside of the corner. We're going to be turning left, so I'm one or two wheels from the left, so I figure I'm going to get a good line through the corner. I really like where I am right now. Unfortunately, this is where things start to go a bit wrong. This guest picks rider starts to move up and didn't quite have space to move up onto his wheel. Pete manages to take that wheel, and I've shuffled back maybe one row too many. We're about to come into the left-hand corner, and all of a sudden I'm not front row, second row, I'm third row. I'm still pretty happy with my inside line, but then all of a sudden the outside goes around 10 times faster, and I'm now 15th wheel, and the sprint is on. At this point, my rear camera's run out of battery, so we can't see the people behind me. And I've gone from being in a good position to being way out of position, and now it's just going to be all about power and doing the best I can. I would like to have been able to sit in the wheels a little bit longer, but I'm going to have to keep coming around people. And just laying it all down. This was one of my best sprints of all time. I set a whole bunch of all-time power records. Barely cracked 1,000 watts, but did 900 for 25 seconds. Finished in the top 10, but more importantly, I finished the race. Felt competitive. Felt like I learnt from it. I reckon I can take that corner better next time. And just all round, the vibes were so much better. So anyway, there's a comeback from 4 DNFs in a row. We've got one more race of the series, the Dockside Criterium. We'll see you in that one. Bye for now.